Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for accommodating me with earlier time. We begin at 7b, towards the bottom. We are on the third line from the bottom. Lo sakiru panim b'mishpat. So the pasuk continues in instructing how judges are to be fair. Don't recognize people, don't favor people in judgment. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Lo takirehu. That means don't recognize. I'm not sure how this sheds any light on it, but what it means is don't recognize someone that you are friends with and rule in his favor because of your friendship. Rabbi Lazar Omer Lo tinakrehu. He understands it as a different root. Don't treat him as a stranger, right? You have somebody who you don't like, and don't treat him differently. Don't view his arguments poorly just because of your personal relationship is poor. Ushpischane derav asal ladina. There was a somebody who had hosted Rav. Rav had stayed in his hotel, uh, and this fellow came uh, in a court case, and Rav was a judge. Amalo, he said to Rav, Lavush Pizichni, weren't you the guy that was my guest? Amalo, yes. Amalei, Dina Isli. I like, you were a good guest, and I want you to be my judge. Amalei, so Rav says, I'm not a good judge. I can't be a judge for you because we have a personal relationship. Only Rav Rav Kana. So Rav says to Rav Kana, Puchtaina, you go do it. You be the judge. Chazye dehava kagoisbe. And Rav Kana saw that, this litigant was kind of cozying up to Rav. He was making out like, oh, Rav and I were tight. Amalei, so Rav Kana says, Itzaisa, tzaisa. If you will, listen if you'll obey my judgment, then fine. Vilo, Mepiknolach Rav Meunach. I'm going to, I'm going to come between you and Rav. In other words, I'm going to excommunicate you if you don't follow my judgment. And even so, like, don't think that you're so close to Rav. I can come between you and Rav. You have to respect me as a judge. Kakaton kagadol tishmaun. The pasuk continues. You should listen to big and small the same. Amar Reish Lakish. Shehei chaviv alechadin shel pruta kedin shel me'amana. Meaning, not the people are large or small, but the amount in question is large or small. You should take with the same seriousness a dispute over a small amount of money or a large amount of money. Regarding what? What does that mean? Does that mean to, pay close attention to the details? Pshita, obviously. Like, what do you need a pasuk to tell you this? If you're judging something, you have to pay attention to the details. Elalak dume. What it means is, don't, you have two cases on your docket, and the first one that comes up is the small amount, and you see that later on you're going to be doing the large amount. You shouldn't first you shouldn't change the order of how you're dealing with these things. Don't deal with the larger case first. You have to respect the litigants of the same, whether it's a large amount or a small amount. Lo sagur mipnei ish. We're going back to something we analyzed before. Don't hold back from anyone. We interpreted that as don't hold back your opinion, even in the presence of your teacher on the court. Amar Mechanan al tachni sorechu mipnei ish. Don't don't hold back your opinion because of a man. We interpreted that as your teacher. Because judgment is God's. Amar Chama bar Chanina. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. God says, "L'dayin l'rishayim shenotlim mizeh mamon v'nosin lozeh shelo kedin ella shematrichin osi l'hachzir mamon l'balav." Like what by saying justice is God's, it's like you're giving God a job that he didn't need. Like if you had judged correctly, then God wouldn't have to go, as it were, to the trouble of making things so that the guy in the right gets his money back. Um, so in other words, if you judge incorrectly, you're putting God to the trouble of having to make it right behind the scenes. Well,
On
the
the
Varshri,
previous
yeah.
case, on the previous case where we said about the smaller one versus the larger one,
Yeah.
uh, Rashi learns a little differently. He learns that not that it depends on the size of of the the that you should judge them equally based on how large the amount. He says whatever comes before you. So even if the large one, small one, doesn't matter. The one that's in front of you first, you have to judge it.
Yeah, is that that's what I was trying to say. Sorry if that came out wrong.
It's there's a difference between giving favoritism to a large amount versus a firm because one may think that this was well, I get this is better. This is favors a larger versus smaller amount, right? I think he's just saying that the one that comes in front of you first.
Yeah, I'm not sure I see the difference. That's what I meant to say. I'm sorry if it didn't come out that way. Yes, whichever one comes to you first is the one that you should judge. If the smaller one happens to come to you first, you should do that one first. And if the larger one comes to you first, you should do that one first.
Yeah,
Yes? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're correct. Um, okay, the next part of the puzzle about how Davar Sharik Shemikem, Moshe said if when he distributed the work to all these other judges, these other courts, if it's too difficult for you, then Takrivin Shmati, bring it to me, Moshe, and I will judge it. I will hear it. Amar Rabbi Chanina v'Tema Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Chanina said, Al Davar Zeh Nanach Moshe. Moshe was punished for this. Shanamar Re'ekrev Moshe Mishmatan Lifnei Hashem. When it came to the Benos Slafchad, they brought him the case, and he didn't know what to do, so he had to take it. He says he took the judgment to God for a ruling. So, in other words, by he was taught a little lesson there that no, you're not the last authority. You're not the one that's going to be able to decide everything. Even you are going to find things that are too difficult for you, and you'll have to bring them directly to God. Maskif Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman asked, Miksi Vash Miachem. Um, does it say that I will um, um, the Ashmiachem, like an I will let you hear what my decision is. No, it says bring it to me and I'll hear it. I'll hear the case. That's not arrogant, right? It doesn't preclude. It doesn't say that he's got all the answers. It says that he's the guy that is, your backup. But it doesn't deny that maybe Moshe won't know either, right? He's not saying I will tell you what to do. He's saying I'll listen to your case. So what's wrong with that? If I know the answer, then I'll tell you the answer. And if I don't, then I'll go to God. I'll go and learn the answer. So that's not arrogant. Ella Kidatanya. So why then was there a gap in Moshe's knowledge? Why didn't Hashem tell him this halacha in advance, like everything else? Ella Kidatanya, like this brisa. Ruya Parshas Nachlos Shetikase Validei Moshe Rabbeinu. Why are the Benos Slafchad given credit for bringing this to light? Really, the parsha should have been written. Here's another law, another of God's laws. Why is it set up as something that the Benos Slafchad had to bring to him and he didn't know, and he had to go back to the Ron Shalom? Benos Slafchad v'nifkav al yadan. It is to their merit of the daughters of Slafchad that it was written with them in the story. Ruya Haisa Parsha, and similarly, Ruya Haisa Parshas Makosha Shitikasu Odei Moshe Rabbeinu. Same thing with the Makoshe Shetzim, the guy that was caught chopping wood on Shabbos, and they didn't know what to do with him. And Moshe says, "I'll have to go and ask God. Why is it set up that way? Why do we need the whole story? Why don't we just have the law and the Torah? What you do to a Makoshe Shetzim?" Because the Mikoshesh was guilty, he was included in the story. To tell you that that when you have something negative that is then you attribute that or you bring it about through someone who has a negative attribute, and vice versa. If you have something that is a positive thing, then you bring that about through someone who is merits.
It's interesting that these 2 points, the negative versus positive, are juxtaposed because there is a Masorah that the Makoshesh was Tzalafchad.
Well, Slavcha, yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. Uh-huh. Yeah, good one. Didn't think of that. Yeah, very nice. Steve, it's written there. I I commanded your judges at that time. That's the prelude to this whole parasha. But then two psukim later it says, I commanded you, the people. So who is he? Um, uh, so I understand that you're instructing the judges how to rule, but what do you mean you're instructing the people? The instruction is for the judges how to carry out judgment. So what does it mean? Vatsav I commanded you. Amar Belazar, Amar Rabbi Simlai. It's a warning or a command, instruction to the public that they should have respect for the judges. And it's a injunction to the judge that he should have some patience with the community, with the public. Ad kama, how so? How much patience should they have? As Moshe, said to God, I've tolerated these people like a nursemaid, right, carrying a child, carrying a baby. So that's how the judge, just as Moshe related to the people, that's how the judges should relate to the people. Ksiv ki atotavo, not in the same place, but again referring to leadership. When Moshe charges Yehoshua with his leadership position, um, he says, "Because you are going to bring the people into Eretz Yisrael." But the word isn't right. Ki atotavo means you will come uh, into the land. Atotavo. What's the rest of the pasuk? Um, Tavo es b'nei Israel. Is it? Um,
אם בני ישראל,
yes, Amazah. Yeah.
אם העם הזה, בארץ,
No, it's not in because the Gemara's question is it should say Tavi, you will bring the people. Um, it's Tavo as Bnei Israel. Um, it means it should be you should bring the people, not you will come with the people. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Moshe LiYeshua, Atav Askenim Shavadari Mahem, you and the other elders. Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu, what he's saying is Tol Makel v'Hachal Kod Kadam. You're going to have to break a stick over their heads. In other words, you have to show an an iron-fisted leadership. Um, how does that answer a question, though? Um, Oh, I'm sorry. No, the question is that there are two psukim, Kiyata Tavo, and I missed the line here. Uksiv Kiyata Tavi. In one sense, it's you're going to come with them. You'll be, one of the people. You're going to come with them. But the other is you will bring the people. So the second one is Tavi. You're going to bring them like you're going to have to drag them in. You're going to have to show some force with your leadership. Davar Acher, Elador v'yein
the
shnei.
first one says, כי תבוא את העם הזה אל הארץ.
Yeah, that means you will come with them.
Right.
But Tavi means you will bring them with
Right.
you, right? So dabar achad lador vein shnei dabarim lador. There has to be only one leader. Like you have to be strong. You have to be a tough leader. You're the one in charge. That's what God is telling them. Okay. So back to our Mishnah. Tana. We have a so we were talking about the Mishnah is talking about the number of judges on the court, right? So Tana, we have a brisa, Zimun Bishlosha. Zimun is three people. So what is Zimun? My Zimun. Ilim Birkas Zimun, if we're talking about Birchas Hamazon, right, where, as we all know, if you have three people having a meal together, then there's a formula to recite before the Birkat Hamazon to introduce it or to invite people to join you in the Birkat Hamazon, if that's what it's talking about. Latanya, Zimun, Ubirkas Zimun, Bishlosha. But there's another brisa that says there's two different things that require three, Zimun and Birkas Zimun. So Birkas Zimun is clearly Birkas Hamazon. And if you're saying it's just explaining Zimun, what is that? Birkas Zimun, that's with three. No, that can't be. My Zimun, Birkas Zimun. That's what it means, Vatanya, but we have another brisa. Zimun bishlosha, birkas zimun bishlosha. Another brisa really separates them. It says zimun is with three. The bracha of zimun is also with three. So you can't interpret that as an explanation. It's two separate things. So what is zimun? Elamai zimun. Azmuni ladin. That means inviting someone or summoning someone to a court case. That requires that requires three people, three judges. Ki hadi amar Rava, as Rava said, hani beitzlasa daine diasve, the three judges that are sitting in the court. Of azil shlicha devedina b'amar mipuma dechad, and the messenger goes and summons one of the litigants, and he says, the chief judge invites you, or summons you to a court case, but he doesn't say the three judges. Um, uh, invite you or summon you, lo merklum. That has no effect. No, you don't have to respond to a summons from one judge. You only have to respond to a summons from a court of at least three. Hanimile below Yoma Dedina, but that is only if it's not on Judgment Day, if you will. In other words, the day that the court sits, right? Although Yoma Dedina Leislamba, but on the Judgment Day, right? On the it's Mondays and Thursdays that were market days, and so Ezra said these are going to be the the days that the court sits and judges on market days. You can. I guess the assumption is that if you're being summoned on market day, it's by a court. But if it's on a Sunday, then you don't have it has to be explicit that a court is summoning you, because it's not. You wouldn't know otherwise that there's a court there that is summoning you. You'd think it was just the one person. The next thing in the Mishnah is Tashlumi Kefel, cases of fines of paying a thief paying back double um, for as a fine, requires three judges. Shalach le Rav Nachman bar Rav Chizda Rav Nachman bar Yaakov. Yamdeinu Rabbeinu, teach us. Dine knasos bekama. How many judges do you need for a case of knas, of a fine? So my Gemara says, what are you even asking? Hanan Tanam, we have a Mishnah, B'shlosha. The Mishnah says Kefel and so on, with three judges. Eliachid mumcha coming by. What he's asking is, yeah, you need three you need three judges, but what if you have one expert judge? Is that equivalent to three ordinary judges? So does an expert judge, is he authorized by himself to judge a case of knas? Armalei, so he answered. Tanisua, we have a Mishnah. Tashlumi kefil, tashlumi arachamisha b'shlosha. Our Mishnah says three. My shlosha. What do you mean by three? Ilam shlosha yotos. It means three regular people. Hamar avua avuch mishmei Rav. Your grandfather mishmei Rav. Your grandfather quoted the name of Rav. Afilu asar v'henad yotos. Psulun dinei knasos. If they're regular people, even if there's 10 of them, that's not enough for a knas, for judging a knas, a fine. Elamumchin v'kamar shlosha. So it must be that it can only be experts on the panel, but we said there have to be three, so we're talking about three experts. And one expert is not enough. Then back to the Mishnah, the rabbis say, Mosi Shem Rabbi Esrim Mishlosha. They dispute the Tanakama, or Reb Meir, that says that you need only three for a case of Mosi Shemra. Mosi Shemra is, remember, a case of a man who accuses his wife of not being a virgin when they got married. So what he's really accusing her of is having had sex with someone while they were engaged, meaning a formal engagement that after kiddushin. So which is a capital offense. So that needs to be judged according to the rabbis by 23. V'chiesh bodin nefashos ma'have. So Gemara says, well, so what if it's related to din nefashos? Apparently, the assumption is that the case, although it is a Mosi Shemra case, he's not seeking the death penalty. He's just seeking to get out of his ksuba, right? Because he's not liable for the ksuba if in such a case, if it were true. So he's not. It's not a death penalty case, but it is related to it is related. It could become a death penalty case. But right now, all he wants is to get out of this Cuba. So the Gemara says, so what? Why do you need 23? At this point, it's only a monetary case. Amar Ula. Ula says, and this is gonna, this is gonna continue for the next daf, is like analyzing this machlokas coming up. So Ula says, B'choshin Lulaz kamiflige. Ula says that the reason that you need 23, or that they're arguing over whether you need 3 or 23, is that we're concerned that when news of this case spreads, and this is a juicy case, right? When news spreads, that might flesh out witnesses to her infidelity, and then it does become a capital case. So Rameir Savar Ein Choshin Laz. Rameir says, so what? Like, I'm not worried about that. Right now, he's only seeking to renege on his ksuba. And so it's a monetary case, so it's 3. Rabbana Savar, and the rabbis say, Choshin Laz. No, it's already has to be judged as if it were a capital case, because it is possible, or maybe likely, or whatever, it's more likely now that witnesses will come forward, and then it becomes a capital case. Rava has a different explanation. No, nobody's worried about witnesses coming forward. That's not what they're talking about here. It's a monetary case. But what we're concerned about is, you know, you bring this case to the court of infidelity. So the court assembles a court of 23 because apparently it's a capital case. And then the guy says, no, you know what? I don't have witnesses that she was unfaithful. But, just my claim that she was unfaithful is enough to get me out of the ksuba, right? So we don't need all 23 of you. We only need 3 of you, right? 20 of you can go home. 20 judges can go home. So, Hachamai Skinon, yeah, so what are we talking about? Kagon de Ichniv Be Asrin Tlasa, Le Medan Din Nefashos. They gathered a court of 23 because it seemed like a capital case, V'ibadur. And witnesses don't show, right? The husband doesn't bring any proof um, that she was unfaithful. But he says, okay, my witnesses didn't show up. Still, I have a claim not to pay her ksuba because, I don't, the detail I didn't mention is that you don't even need witnesses to get out of that. If you accuse your wife of being unfaithful, then you're off the hook for the ksuba. Um, so, so it's like, okay, so we don't need a court of 23 because I wasn't able to bring witnesses, but I still want to judge, I still want your judgment on the ksuba. So one says, the Rameir says, yeah, uh, that it's now a monetary case. So 20 of the judges can go home and 3 can stay. But the rabbis say, no, that kind of is disrespectful to the judges, right? You hear that so and so was impaneled as a judge, and then he was sent home. Maybe it's like you think less of him, like, oh, he wasn't the best judge on the panel, or he wasn't qualified, or whatever. So the rabbis say if you assemble the court of 23, you have to keep the court at 23, even if it turns into just a monetary thing. Meisvei, so they asked a question on the first version, which is that we're worried that the publicity about the case will bring forward witnesses and it will turn into a capital case. So they asked a question about this. Another brisa says that the rabbis say if you claim money in a court of 3, then it's a court of 3. Tavo nefashos v'esrim mishlosha. If you are looking for capital to try her on a capital offense of infidelity, then you need 23. So Bishlam Rava, according to Rava, you can explain Tavo Mamon Tchila, like Rava's explanation that, like, oh, originally there were 23, originally it was capital case, but then it became only a monetary case. So you can say that this brisa means Tavo Mamon Tchila, that if he first only wanted money, then you only need three. Then bishlosha tavo nefashos chila. But if he originally came with a capital claim, then afilu mamon b'yasrim shlosha. Then you have to keep the 23. That makes sense according to Rava. According to Ula, the first explanation that you're just worried that witnesses might come forward because of the publicity. Kashi, how do you understand the brisa, right? Because according to Ula, Tavo Mamon, if he only originally wanted money, we're still concerned that it might be a capital case. Um, so Gemara answers Amarava, Aniva Arisha B'Chabura Targumina Targumina. Me and the lion of our group, Umanu Rabbi Chia Baravin, and who is that lion of the group? In other words, the greatest one among us. That's Rabbi Chia. This is how he explained it. He brought witnesses. So it was a capital case to begin with. And then the father, or the party to the wife's case, brought other witnesses and made the first two edim zomim. Right? They brought contrary witnesses, and we believe the contrary witnesses. Um, so, so now so what's the ruling here? That the man has to pay a fine of 100 shekel to the father as a motzi shemra. Um, so this is how the brisa goes. Bali vos maman mi baal. If the father comes to as a monetary case, bishlosha, that's only three. U'b'makom nefashos, but a case where you only have the husband and he has no witnesses, so there's no hazama possible, then biasri mishlosha, then you need 23. Abaye has a different explanation. Everybody holds we're worried about publicity, right? And we have to have 23 for that reason. And also you have to have 23 because you would have to have 23 because you don't want to dismiss any judges. It doesn't look good for them. So what are we talking about? When do they argue about 3 and 23? Kigon, the Asr Bastam. What was the Hasra? What was the warning they gave? For any capital case or any punishment, physical punishment, you have to give a warning. The witnesses have to give a warning saying, if you do this, this is going to be your punishment, right? But if they gave Hasra, if they gave him a warning saying, don't do this, but they didn't say because it's a death penalty if you do, they just said, don't do this. It's wrong. You shouldn't do it. Vahai Tanahu and Reb Meir, who says you still need 23, this is his opinion. The Tanya, his opinion of this brisa. Ushakol Chayve Misa Shabbatorah, all of the death penalty cases except for a maces, someone who incites you to idolatry, every other death penalty case, you have to have Ada, which is a court of 23, the Edim, Shahasra, and witnesses and the warning. And the warning has to be that this is a capital crime. But they don't have to tell you what method of execution is going to be used. It says not the warning has to be not only that this is a capital crime, but this is a capital crime punishable by which form of execution? Skila sreifa harakhanak. So the rabbis would say that you can give the death penalty even with a general warning. So you would need 23. But in a case where the witnesses did not only gave a general warning, and if you hold like Rabbi Yehuda that's not sufficient, then it's not a death penalty case, and you would only need three. And one more explanation for today. Rav Papa Amar. What is the reason for the dispute between the rabbis and Rav Meir, 3 of 23? Hacha be'isha chaverasin. We're talking about a woman who is educated. And no hasra, no warning was given. The Kamifli have looked at Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbanan, and really the argument is between Rabbi Yossi and the rabbis. What is that dispute? The Tanya, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Chaver Ein Sarei Hasra. When do you need a warning? Only for somebody who maybe isn't so educated, but somebody who went to yeshiva and he knows perfectly well that what he's doing is subject to whatever penalty. Then you don't. Then a warning is not required in order to administer the punishment. What do you have warnings for in the first place? To make sure that somebody is doing something deliberately before you punish him, and not in ignorance of the law, right? So a chaver, somebody who went to yeshiva, who knows the law, doesn't need hasra because he knows it. So there's no purpose in the hasra. So the rabbis would say that you can have a death penalty even if there was no hasra, and so you'd need 23. And Reb Meir says no, you only need you if there's a case where there was no hasra, no proper hasra, then it's not a death penalty case because there was that missing factor, and so you can only have three. Okay, and tomorrow David will pick up really with further explanations of this machlokas between 3 and 23 for a knas, and that will take up the rest of the next daf.
Yasher Koach.
Have a good day, everybody.
Hanukkah Sameach.